All right, welcome to the Men Who Shine show. I'm here with the one, the only, the legendary Mr. Mark Christopher Neff. Mr. Neff, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate you making the time.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in. If you don't know Mark, Mark is an LGBTQ plus author slash life coach whose mission is to touch as many lives as he can with his book, as he candidly shares his experiences with sexual identity, cancer, addiction, tragic loss, career burnout, and mental health. Mark is a longtime player in the beauty industry, and he actually sold his 3 salons just before the pandemic hit. And he used that time to reflect on all of the things and write Diving into Darkness to Find Light, which is a collection of poems and vignettes on life's journey to authenticity. So we're going to kind of dig in, ask him what inspired him to do that, where he finds his light, and how he continues to help others shine and do the same. So thank you again, Mark, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So tell me, really, I'm really curious, like what led, I mean, you got to count your blessings a little bit on the sale of your business and then
Absolutely,
then the
yes.
pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So how did that, like, how did you process that?
Well, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I've been sober for 3.5 years. And, my sobriety is what gave me clarity to realize that I was burnt out in the hair industry. And so when I decided to sell the salon, the fact that we sold it and closed 2 weeks prior to the pandemic, that was kind of my affirmation that yes, I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you in conversation with the people who purchased it? Were they were like, son of a
No,
bitch?
they're actually doing great.
Okay,
I
good,
think
good.
with the pandemic, a lot of the banks and stuff were really flexible on terms. So it
Hmm.
really allowed people in the industry to kind of work through that, which was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, had you always been in this process? I mean, in recovery, I imagine, kind of shed light on what was the timeline between, like in the pandemic and your recovery, and what inspired you to start this collection of poetry and vignettes?
Sure, absolutely. I've always been an optimist by nature. I've just unfortunately lived through some traumatic times in my life. So when I had the time to really, carve out still time and I started reflecting on those moments, I realized even though I'm an optimist, I still had kind of buried some of the emotions attached to each.
Mm,
So I used that still time to revisit that emotion, truly process it and what it meant to me, and then let it go. And so through this whole journey, I just feel lighter. And, my optimism has always, been shining through in my life. But this truly allowed me to kind of realize more self acceptance and realize that those struggles are really what take us to a bigger, better place in our life.
mm-hmm. So are you a member of any 12-step groups, or do you practice that, or what specifically do you use in your recovery journey? And the reason I ask is because not everybody, Brene Brown says that the recovery process is a journey in recovering ourselves. And
Yeah.
so many of us take many different roads. I'm curious what your experience is with you brought up the sobriety and recovery, and how you've managed that.
Absolutely. Well, in the beginning, I used AA quite a bit. It
Mm-hmm.
really gave me the foundation in my sobriety. I was fortunate enough to work with 5 other sober people. So every day before work, we kind of had our own little meeting. And then above and beyond that, I'm blessed to be surrounded by some really significant sober people in my life. So that's where I draw most of my support.
Yeah. I find that that's huge. And a lot of people, in my space or in the, personal professional development space, and it's more about kind of a performance thing
Uh
a little
huh.
bit. But I have found, so I'll have 4 years in June of this year.
Okay.
And so,
Congrats.
yeah, so, it's been, at this point, it's like, it's like a hydration kind of thing. Like my body almost responds to even the thought of alcohol and like, it just kind of feels like it shrinks a little bit.
Uh-huh.
What was your experience? Did you have like a big rock bottom experience, or like, why did you choose sobriety?
Yeah,
And it's a
right.
two-part question mark. And how do you feel that your sobriety has led into and fed your journey of authenticity?
Absolutely. Well, I've never really been in trouble my entire life. I've always kind of been a good kid, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And within 6 months, I got 2 DUIs. The second involved totaling my car. And thank goodness I didn't hurt anyone or hurt myself, but it could have been a lot worse. And so after that second DUI and the accident, I realized, I really have to get serious about this. I had tried a couple times on my own with no success. And, that is what really catapulted me into true sobriety. And then the second part of that, I'm sorry, ask me the second part of that again.
Oh, you're asking me to go back a minute and a half. Hold on. Whoop, whoop, whoop. No, I was going to ask you how your sobriety journey has played into your authenticity journey.
Oh, absolutely. I think that I was living my life in my drinking days. In a sense, I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing, and I was
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of stuff for trying to make other people happy. So I think the sobriety in a true sense gave me clarity to be self-introspective and something that I like to call healthy selfish. I started taking care of myself on a whole new level, and
Yeah.
it opened up clarity in my mind to really figure out, am I happy professionally, am I happy personally? And that's what kind of led me to saying no. I've been putting band-aids on my career for the past 5 years, hoping to reignite that passion. And when I realized that, that's when I said, I'm going to sell. There's something
Mm.
out there, I think, that's more in alignment with where I'm at in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes.
surprisingly, the book, came about. And I had no intention of writing a book, but when I started diving into some of these traumas in my life, I started writing. And the
Mm.
writing was so amazing for me and what it did, that I thought, if I can share this with people and make one person not feel alone in their struggle, then it'll be worth every page of it.
Yeah, totally. And I know that was my experience as well. I didn't ever, I mean, I was always like, I have to write this, and I just started, kind of sending stories out on Facebook. And then everyone's like, oh, you need to put these all together. And, so it was always occurred to me that I wanted to write a book and put it out there. And the same deal. It was like, if I just hit, and I have got a couple who are like the fan favorites who check in with me, and, it just, I'm like, that's it. Like, it makes me so happy to know that just one person, or, however many people, didn't matter, because is a work from my heart. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about, recovery and authenticity, is that we start doing these things that are in alignment with who we are, what fulfills our purpose. There's not a lot of egos attached to it per se.
Right.
And when you said healthy, selfish, it reminded me, I don't know, do you watch Schitt's Creek?
I do.
Yeah, when David's like, Alexis, it's my turn to take a selfish.
Oh,
Do you
yes.
remember that scene? It's
It's
like,
such a great show.
no, I'm gonna take a selfish now. Um, but it's true, I think a lot of our mentality is, self-care is not at anywhere on the list, or it's
Right.
very low on the list. We're told that, self-care is secondary to others. Like, like it's elevated somehow to be selfless, when in reality, we do need to tend to ourselves and tend to our own cup to make sure
Right.
that we're able to give the most of ourselves to others. I'm
Absolutely.
I'm curious if the work that you had in recovery, do they talk about self-care a lot, or what is that conversation?
Yeah, I think that being in the beauty industry for so long and giving
Mm,
so much to other people, it kind of became evident to me really quickly that I was giving a lot more to others and kind of disregarding myself. And, when I say disregarding, I think it can be things as simple as healthy eating and, sticking to an exercise routine. And when I do those types of things, again, it fuels like my creative energy. It gives me power in my sobriety journey because I can't imagine going back to waking up hungover. Like I
Mhm.
love my mornings and the clarity of mind and planning out the day. It's just so much more fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I got to a point where, I just was tired of feeling bad, and I think that maybe it came with came with age where I just couldn't metabolize it as much. Like I would drink more than, 3, 4 cocktails and I'd be down for like 2 days,
Oh
like
yeah.
down for a day, like down for a day. And then the next day, not 100%. So I was just like, I
Right.
got too much stuff to do. Like this is, I mean, yeah. So I'm a big, so what was your, I'm curious because a lot of I don't want to say complaints are around like, oh my God, everybody drink, especially in the gay community, everybody's going out
Yes.
you've got the drag parties, the drag brunch or the Sunday fun days. I mean, I have seen it, I have friends who aren't totally in the scene, I'll call it, coming out a little later in life and having 2 children, kind of, I was a little bit removed from that. But it's certainly very prevalent. So, I mean, what's your opinion on, this socially acceptable, drinking lifestyle,
Uh-huh.
in the LGBT community? Do you feel like it's more in the LGBT community or less or the same?
Well, I used to say the same things that you just talked about. I would say, gosh, that's what we do in the gay community.
Yeah.
But, I started catching myself because I think it's really in every community now. I
Mm-hmm.
think people use alcohol to celebrate, they use it to mourn, they use it for a good day, they use it for a bad day,
Yeah.
everything. But what I realized very quickly into my sobriety, and I always use the coffee shop as an example, I didn't realize how much life was going on with people that don't have a drinking problem or choose not to drink. And the coffee
Uh-huh.
shop is one of my favorite places now. I said, I didn't realize that it was so amazing to hang out here and the people you meet and just all the stuff going on because I was always in the bar or, at a house party where drinking was kind of the main thing going on.
Mm-hmm. So how did your friends react when you made like that stand?
My friends are absolutely amazing. And I think that's what's given me a lot of strength as well. I took the stance that I didn't want any of them to change their behavior on my account because I knew finally that this was something I had to do 100% on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So they were super supportive, super accommodating. They were more than happy to meet me, at a coffee shop if we wanted to, or take a walk instead of going out, things like that.
Nice. Well, that's definitely, I found some people can kind of get uncomfortable, but it's really just them being uncomfortable with their own, it's like,
Right.
oh man, I don't know how to, but for people who, are just like, I'll say normal drinkers, like some people can have like 1, 2 drinks and be done, or just like one.
Mhm.
I'm like, how, like, I'm just getting started. Like, how can
Yes,
you just,
exactly. That's a
I mean,
warm
like, how
up.
can you have like 1 or 2? Like, that's just, I mean, we're,
Right.
for those people, it's no big deal. Like they don't have to drink. But I think that if you have a propensity, any kind of addictive personality, it's like you said, you drink for, on the good days, on the bad days, when you're tired, when you have a lot of energy, when you're, for mourning, for celebration. Like it's just, you
Right.
can check off all the lists, anything on the
Absolutely.
list for that checking out. So what are some of the
Right.
things that you do now, and kind of, kind of speaking to how you shifted from, what you overcame in terms of like, any kind of traumatic things and like how you moved yourself into the light. Like, what is that? Is that a daily process? Like, what do you do?
Well, I think the journey of writing the book was kind of the process for me, and it kind of opened up channels to realize, like, when you're dealing with stuff, not to kind of suppress those emotions and bury them. I think that a lot of serious stuff in our family, we just really didn't talk about. And I think a lot of people grew up in those situations. You kind of swept stuff under the rug. You wanted everything to look perfect, from the outside. And so, it wasn't until I had the time to really sit down and think about it to see that pattern that had happened over many years. And so I think, kind of diving into some of that darkness truly lifted it for me. And I think what continually gives me strength is just sticking to my daily disciplines and helping other people, even if it's a simple conversation about, positive energy and just living life to your fullest and finding your passion. That's the stuff that fuels my sobriety now, because, I want to continue to do that.
Yeah, I smoke my fake cigarette in honor. I do
Well, I
have
tell
some.
people all the time, I spent almost 20 years working on people's external beauty. The thing that lights me up is helping people with this, like, their internal beauty. Like, it's just so nice when you see people have a light bulb moment or realize that they don't have to do something, that, they're maybe doing that because they're afraid someone will disapprove. It's like, no, do it for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like a default program though, right? Like, I mean, where
Right.
do you think that stems from? Do you think that stems from shame? Do you think that stems from like something specific to being queer in some way, shape, or form? Or where do you think
Absolutely.
that propensity to kind of I don't want to say disobey yourself, but just not be true to yourself, right? To do
Yeah.
something that is out of alignment with what you know deep down is good for you, or is a reflection of the true you. What do you think is the root of that?
I think for me, a lot of the root had to do with sexual identity. I
Mm,
was afraid for people to really see who I was. Growing up as a kid in the 70s, 80s, when, the gay lifestyle wasn't socially accepted on a large scale,
mm-hmm.
I think I learned to start hiding parts of myself at a very young age. And, even though I came out and I lived in San Francisco for 6 years, being thrown into the gay community with a lot of drinking and a lot of partying,
Yeah.
it gave me the illusion that I was comfortable in my own skin. But when I wasn't drinking or wasn't partying, there were parts of myself that I still had fear that people would judge me. People might even hurt me if they found out I was gay based on some of the things that I had seen in the media. So I think that it was almost like a survival skill to let the parts of myself out that I knew were safe, but I
Mm-hmm.
was constantly living in kind of a low grade fear because of
Mm-hmm.
my own lack of self acceptance of who I really was.
Mm-hmm. At what age did you come out?
I was 22.
Okay, so pretty
Yeah.
young, but I mean, still in that I hear, and not to mention Brene Brown again, but
Yes.
she has a great distinction between fitting in and belonging. And she talks about this a little bit in her book, Braving the Wilderness, about really, really belonging. The distinction, the fitting in is doing what you need to do to be accepted, doing whatever you need
Correct.
to do to be accepted by a group or person. And the belonging is just that feeling of acceptance from someone else, like that exists no matter what you do.
Right.
And so, in your share of like, okay, you did the partying and you did the thing and you did that, but it was more about fitting in for
Right.
you rather than belonging, because you still kind of you were left with this feeling of not belong, like fitting in but not belonging, because you
Right.
weren't necessarily belonging to yourself. And I think that that's the beautiful journey of authenticity for, I mean, particularly for any men in the queer space, I'll just call it.
Right.
We have a unique opportunity to shine our light and to hold space for others to do the same. I believe that there is an element of bravery that's required of us. So, I definitely acknowledge you for your bravery and
Oh,
coming
thank
out
you.
and, coming out even more and out even more and out even more. So when did diving into darkness to find light, when did that come out?
It was published in January of this year.
Oh, okay. So real recently.
Yeah, it's really new. I
Okay.
started working on it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. I
How's that
started
been for you?
working. It's been great. The
Yeah.
response, I kind of had two audiences in mind. First, the people that have gone through the experiences in the book, but
Hmm.
secondly, the caretakers of people, the moms and dads of the little gay boy or girl, or
Uh-huh.
transgender parents. Um, the people that have gone through the cancer experience, but also the people that have the family members of people that have had cancer. I wanted to give a perspective that will hopefully help people in those circumstances, because I think the psychological enormity of a lot of this didn't catch up with me until I had
Mm.
the chance to take the pause
Yeah.
and really look into a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think that that's the silver lining of the pandemic for a lot of people,
Right.
where it was like a big time of reflection, and a
Yes.
big time of transformation and a big time of like reset. I think a lot of us, a lot of the people I noticed, they were just like going into cocoon mode and cave mode and, the usual unhealthy coping mechanism mode. um,
Right.
but when they tired of that, they went into reflection mode. And I think we're in this interesting time of recovery, of like this bouncing back of this, like, what does the world look like now, because I can tell you, like, my book came out in like 2019, and I go back and read it, I'm like, I don't even agree with myself
Oh,
anymore.
yeah.
Like, I don't agree. I mean, not that I disagree with everything in there. It's just like, I feel so complete, like between the pandemic, because like the pandemic led to, I had an big event production business, and I produced food truck festivals, and I produced, all these different events, and that just like all went away.
Oh,
So,
right.
I had some other consulting clients and coaching clients and little things like that, but my main little bread and butter was event production. And so, that all went away. And unfortunately, I didn't have enough, my journey in recovery has been more about like financial recovery, and,
Uh-huh.
the beautiful, I use the 12 steps with Debtors Anonymous, which is an amazing, or it's like spiritual money management. If you've ever,
Ah, cool.
it's like step oneing your money, right? So just like
Uh-huh.
releasing control. Anyway, it's amazing. So
Oh, I
between,
bet.
yeah, because like I lost like everything, like lost my kids, lost my house, I mean, it was a very intense time, the most intense time of my life. And I learned a lot about resilience, a lot about, forgiveness, belief, the
Yes.
habits, the discipline, staying sober, staying on the thing. I mean, thank God I had a dog to
Right.
get me out. But um, I say all that to say that a lot of this stuff is like, we're dealing with it now. So we're dealing with this aftermath, because we don't feel, and I can speak probably for a lot of people, like I don't feel like the same person pre-COVID
Right.
at all. And I don't think a lot of us do. Like, we collectively went through this trauma, like on a
Correct.
societal level. I think we were traumatized in some way, shape, or form. Many of us were traumatized in some way, shape, or form.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I love that your art, I'll just call it art, I love that your words
Hmm.
and your art came out in a time where we're now still seeking, we don't want to necessarily go back to the way that we were.
Right.
We want to stay in the space of authenticity and recovery, and really finding the light. So
Absolutely.
I'm curious, what would you say to someone who's kind of like in it, right? And they're kind of like, they acknowledge that these unhealthy habits, or maybe they're in the party scene, or maybe they're drinking too much, or
Mhm.
whatever. Everybody's got their own thing that it occurs to them as a darkness, right? As
Right.
a as something they're present to not being lit up, right? And they're like,
Yes.
so what would you say to them as something that they could do I mean, other than getting your book, of course.
Right. Thank you.
Uh,
I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm going to pick my phone up, I think we have to take a break from technology,
whew, again with the
even if
cigarettes.
it's 5 minutes a day. And, people talk about meditation a lot, and they're so afraid that they're not going to be able to do it. And I tell people there is no right or wrong way. The most important thing you can do to get your heart and your intuition in alignment is taking some still time for yourself. We're so distracted, we're so busy. So, I just don't think our minds have the time to process daily life. So I would say carve out, even to start, 2 minutes of still time every day so that you can start listening to your heart and your intuition, because that will never lead you astray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's an opportunity for us to further trust ourselves. Dun, dun,
Yes.
dun.
Yes. Which is hard, considering a
Right.
lot of us are on a track. I call it the societal track,
Mm-hmm.
where we just have signed up for a lot of stuff that we think we have to do because everyone else is doing it. And to
Mm-hmm.
start disconnecting from some of that also really helps figure out, like, what is my purpose? And when I can align my purpose and a passion, it's limitless.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that how you, your clients, your coaching clients, I mean, what is that kind of the road that you walk them down, or what specific areas of service do you provide?
Well, it's interesting because the people that I was coaching, we did spend a lot of time on like positive affirmations, stillness, really just redefining, like, are you living your truth, or, how do you get there? When I realized for the book that I was giving suggestions to my clients that I needed to take myself, I actually stopped coaching for a year. It's been almost a year and a half now. And I spent all my time and energy doing the work on myself because I knew it would make me a better coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when the book was born, I realized now I think my purpose is to help people on a bigger scale.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken such an open mindset since the pandemic. I'm not trying to force anything. And that's really difficult for me because I was a control freak in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm actually confident that whatever's meant to be for me is going to come from the book.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and one thing I've learned in my recovery journey is kind of like that, like relinquishing the control, I
Yes.
mean, and the ironic thing is, like, there was nothing, I wasn't controlling.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's cute. You thought you controlled shit.
Right. Yes.
But really step one is, like, admitting that we're power, that I had issue for a very long time with that step one, admitting that I'm powerless, because I come from the coaching world, the, transformational world, sign me up for all the woo. I'm there for seminars, classes, retreats, books, coach, all the things. And it's
Yes.
all about empowerment, right? Empower. You have the power. Take responsibility for your life. Da, 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 da. And so it's like, I'm not admitting that I'm powerless. No, I'm not powerless. I'm powerful.
Right. Yes.
Which is true up until a point. Like, there are just some things that, I mean, many, most things that I'm completely powerless over. And the only thing that I'm powerful, the only thing that I have power over is my reaction to those things that I have no
Yes.
power over, predominantly
Absolutely.
like other people. It's like, oh, you're here now. Cool.
Right.
How
Yeah,
am I going to
exactly.
react? How am I going to react?
Right. And I think that illusion of control for me for many years was I was controlling a lot of other things to take the attention off of myself,
Yep.
even taking my own attention off myself. You know, I think I always knew in the back of my mind that I drank a little more than all my friends, but
Mm.
I didn't want to take a look at that. I wanted to just keep in motion.
Yeah. I'll like have an extra drink. I don't want to think about that I drink too much. I'm just going to drink a little bit so I don't have to think about that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, we're at, I have you at, if anybody wants to connect with you, I'll put the link down there below. Your website is findyourlightnow.net. Is that correct? I'm sorry I didn't
Yep, that's
confirm that
it.
with you before.
Yes.
Okay. Findyourlightnow.net. That sounds amazing. I love what you're up to. I love, just the space that you're creating with your art, with your creation, with your self-expression, with your authenticity. It's very refreshing. Thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to share to our group. And I'm one that believes in this abundant world. We live in an abundant world. There is more than enough love and support and all the
Yes.
things to go around. And I'm not going to go to the beach and bitch about a pebble of sand, right? Like,
Right.
where I
Yes,
think we
exactly.
I think we have a lot of growth opportunities, not just in our LGBT community, but for the world at large, to really overcome our shame,
Yes.
and really speak our truth as it occurs to us. One thing that I kind of did not like in my religious upbringing was like, oh, I'm just speaking the truth in love, and
Hmm.
the way that came out. Do you have a religious upbringing?
Not super religious, but I think it
Oh,
was it was in a sense like just based on where I grew up, it was pretty rural. It was
uh-huh.
kind of breathed into life.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that phrase was used in a judgmental context for me growing up, but now I'm like, oh, that's a really good way to say I'm going to speak my truth, because we grew up for so long. I mean, a lot of us in the queer community grew up for so long, like in the shame, in the darkness, and I can't
Yes.
speak my truth. Like, this is not allowed, or this is bad, like all of these like shame spirals. And so, and you can't just speak your truth, just can't say shitty things, because then you're an asshole.
Right.
So
Exactly.
there is a balance with, am I loving myself and am I loving others? I think that is the best place for our truth to be spoken.
Absolutely. And
Is
I
if
think the gay community, we have a huge opportunity to bring that love and support back.
mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we're taking the baby steps to do that, because it used to be a community filled with kind of embracing each other, and it's gotten
Uh-huh.
a little bit away from that, in my opinion.
Yes, it's taken more of a traditional societal cliquey
Yes.
growth curve,
Yep.
because before it was like we were also traumatized for being in the closet, and it's like, oh my God, a family, I love you no matter
Yes.
what. And now it's like we're more integrated, we're more accepted, more people are coming out. It's not that big. I mean, people are still in, and it's still a big deal. We still have a ton of growth to go. It's not a ton of ways to go, but it's certainly nowhere near where it was 30 years ago. Right. So
Right.
now that we have this comfort assigned to us that everyone else does. And so now we can just be, we can be judgmental, more judgmental than I feel is good for us. Like,
Right. I
as a
agree.
community, we have an opportunity to shine the light of, I'll say, unconditional love by dropping judgment. Dun, dun,
Yes, I
dun.
totally agree. And I love the fact that you brought up Brene Brown a lot. She's been a huge inspiration for me. And
Yeah.
I'll actually like read you my favorite quote from her, which is in the back of the book. Um, Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think that hits the nail on the head with what I hope this book can give people is, that little crack in the foundation to see their light.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Mark, I'm sure I could sit and talk to you for another hour. But I really appreciate you taking the time for, shining your light and encouraging others to do the same. So,
Oh, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it.
yeah. So again, you can connect with Mark at findingyourlightnow.net. And until another light time, I will talk to you soon, Mark.
Bye bye.
Bye.